I think we have a fantastic property. We have a great company, very strong balance sheet. We're still drilling when most companies aren't drilling. We're funded for the next 2 years, and we're working very closely with the logging companies, trying to find a way to get this area that we have fully logged. Hey, it's exploration company. Which are the best exploration companies? The ones with the most cash, the ones in the best location, the ones with the best geology. Check, check, check. American Eagle Gold.
Morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're signing in from today. I'm eager to have on today Tony Moreau, CEO of American Eagle Gold, and soon Neil will be joining us as well. Tony, I'll pass it over to you to kick things off.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dan. So the way we're going to do this, I'm going to just give a little bit of an intro. I'm Anthony Moreau. I run American Eagle Gold. Neil's our VPX. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of an update on American Eagle Gold, high level, show you what we're trying to do. Neil's then going to kind of explain some of these results. He's going to share screen to try and explain some of the significance of these results that we see in this porphyry stock zone, this, what we thought was an unmineralized zone, which is showing to be mineralized. And after that, we're going to do some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, I see a lot of them on the board, so let's ask them in person. I can give them to you. I can give them to you straight and direct. So yeah, let me share screen first. So bear with me here. See if I can do this. Window. So I'm assuming everyone can see this slide. So I gave kind of a hybrid of this presentation a few weeks ago. I actually went to London last week. We had 3 days of meetings with funds and investors, etc. And the reason why we did that, we're just trying to get more awareness of American Eagle Gold to the public. I think we have a fantastic property. We have a great company, very strong balance sheet. We're still drilling when most companies aren't drilling. So this 30,000 plus meter program that we have right now, I think it's the biggest in the province of BC for exploration plays. I just want to emphasize something. We have stuff that's high grade in the south, which is our center of gravity, and also have something that's high grade at depth that's getting bigger, that we're going to prove out with some of our future releases. I think with investors, they're really concerned about the high grade, and we need to prove that this thing can be a mine. This south area, I'm fairly confident that it's going to be a mine, and this drilling this year is going to prove that out. And then drilling next year based on this 30,000 meters is going to prove out even more. I think the next 3 months and the following year of drilling is going to be very important for the company. So our plan, we're not mine builders. We want to create a liquidity event. In an ideal world, we don't issue any more shares. We have enough cash to last us for this year's drilling program, next year and the year after, without going to the market. So when we come out with awesome drill holes, we're not going to then kill any momentum with a raise. And I don't think many companies out there can do that. Now, this stuff that we're having in the porphyry zone, which Neil will talk to, it's extremely important. That whole area was not seen to have mineralization, and that all goes to the mill, kind of a Highland Valley model. We have amazing access. I said this in the podcast yesterday. If you want to build a mine, there aren't many places in the world better to build it than where NAC is. It means the cost, the capital cost, which you have to pay back as soon as possible, which we'll do with the high grade if it's a mine. It's, if you look at something in the Golden Triangle, it's less than half what it costs to build there, and a fraction of what it would cost something like Philo or stuff that's 6,000 meters above ground. We have two amazing partners that invested in us, and we have a very strong balance sheet. Now, to kind of show you all of our drilling that we've done this year, look, it looks like you dropped spaghetti on a piece of paper or the streets of Boston, but those are all the maps that we've done. But to kind of show you where we started off, if you look at my cursor here, this is where hole 1 was. And it's almost like Pulp Fiction. If you remember that scene, that guy got shot like 12 times and it missed him. Well, it's kind of like the people that were at NAC before. It's like they put some drill holes in the ground and they just never really hit the high grade that we hit with on our first hole that kind of set the motions to do what we're doing right now. Now, if you kind of fast forward to our last 3 years of drilling, we drilled 30,000 meters in 2022 to 2024. We started to identify this near surface, higher grade zone that you can put to the mill, mine easily at a low cost, and pay back that capital as soon as possible. And then this year's drilling, if you look at kind of the bottom of the line of that box, there really wasn't a lot of historical drilling. We hadn't drilled there before, and we weren't sure if there was mineralization. And sure enough, there was, and not only just mineralization, but high grade. So this box that this stuff that's close to surface, I wouldn't say this is an exact shape. It gives you an idea. This stuff at surface is getting a lot bigger. And this hole here that's going, due west, and then this hole here that's going southwest, that's 73, that's 75. We intercepted similar mineralization and rocks for what we've drilled and kind of identified this previous square that I showed you before here. So this area is definitely getting bigger, which is very exciting for us. And that news is going to come out some point in January or February. But what's also important, Charlie hates the word when I say, there's a jewel box, but, we do believe there's a jewel box. It's not like a pot of gold at the bottom. It's all these kind of joining, combining dikes that kind of then feed the surrounding area. But, we always thought there was some higher grade area down beneath, and we hit it in hole 48. And whether or not, retail understands that, or if I'm able to communicate that properly, we've hit that zone. And we've hit that zone multiple times since then. And that hole was, give or take, it was 100 meters of, almost 2% copper equivalent. And we've hit a bunch of other holes there. And what we're kind of want to show is that we have a large area of continuously high grade rock at a sub level underground that can be mined, mined either with or after that open pit that we see at surface. One thing investors really have to keep in mind too is that when you see a hole, for example, at 45 degrees and it's at 650 meters depth, that's not actually the true depth. The true depth is closer to 450 to 500 meters since it's on that angle. So the stuff that you see when it starts at whatever meters it starts, that's actually not the true depth that's underground. So keep that in mind too. Now, the stuff, let me touch on this. So when I talked about stuff close to the surface, 17, 31 got hidden in that 35, 38 debacle last year, but 17, you got 606 meters of 0.74, very close to surface. 31, you got 407 meters of 0.78, very close to surface. So that's kind of giving you an idea of the stuff that we have close to surface in the south zone. But again, the stuff that's underground, so this was drilled, this is hole 48, we put it out 2 months ago. It was drilled from the north of the south zone, kind of coming southwest, and intercepted that jewel box. It's the first time we really hit into it. We've hit into it multiple times since then. 140 meters of 1.23% copper equivalent, 77 meters of 1.8, over 1% of that's just pure copper. It's absolutely amazing. It's bigger, and we want to show that we have a resource, or could have a resource, between 100 million tons of that underground. So we're on our way there. There's going to be a lot more drilling that's going to have to prove that, but we've hit multiple holes hitting that same area. Now, the stuff with 53, obviously people like these high grade intercepts, and they expect every hole to be high grade, but this is one of the most important developments that we've had on our property to date. So if you see 53, this hole right here, that's 900 meters of 0.3% copper equivalent. Is it going to get most investors out of bed? Probably not. But for us, it's really important because it shows an area of rock that's roughly 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 500 to 600 meters, over 2 billion tons, is mineralized. And what degree is that mineralized? Some of it's going to be less, but like we kind of took us 4 years to kind of backwards into this high grade area at depth with 48, with our balance sheet and the amount that we're going to be drilling. Again, we drilled more meters this year than we drilled in the previous 3 years combined. So with all these 10 holes, we're going to show that this thing is mineralized, probably above cutoff grade that can go to the mill. But we believe that there is some sort of source somewhere, either close to surface where we haven't drilled, or at depth. And the off-season that we use, the geochem, to analyze things is going to help us vector into that area. But if you look at Highland Valley, for example, it was one time a high-grade deposit. But because they paid off all their initial capital, they're able to send all that, call it 0.15 to 0.35 copper equivalent rock to the mill and make a very big profit. So this is kind of the area that we're seeing as adding tonnage that South 32, Tech, whoever, these big companies that want to buy it, that they need, because they don't want to invest in a 10-year, even a 20-year mine life. They want to invest in something that can run for 50, 70 years. And I think we're very close to doing that. But that's just a bit of the background that we have. Again, this is a little bit out of date, but we have around 2,000 meters left. We've released 15 of our 44 holes, so we have 29 of our 44 assays still to come out. And look, all the drill holes we have is based on previous information. So, you better be sure that we're gonna have some amazing results still coming out. We're funded for the next 2 years, and we're working very closely with the logging companies, trying to find a way to get this area that we have fully logged. And, the logging industry is very tough business to understand. It's very political. And if we can't get it logged, we're going to get a license to cut permit ourselves, and we're just going to strip log so we can have roads. We don't need helicopter support. For helicopter support, it's not even the extra cost of having the helicopter. It's just how it kind of handcuffs you making your plans, because you got to build these helicopter pads. But then all of a sudden, if you see some sort of hit on one of these step outs and you want to move your drill, you can only move it 15 degrees in either way. So having skid access is very important for us to kind of make plans on the fly. So that's a bit of an update from us. Now to stop sharing screen, let me try and figure this out. Bear with me. Stop sharing. Okay. Now, some other things people have been asking about too. So, the sequence of our holes. Look, it was a bit of a wait for between, the October release that we put out and this most recent release. It was frustrating for us. We're right in the busiest part of the season for drill results. So it took a lot longer than we thought. And as well, when we do results, we don't put out one hole at a time. We like to put out 4 or 5. We got different rigs working on different sections, so it takes twice as long to get that 4 or 5. And the way the American Eagle operates, we have an idea of what kind of holes we want to put out together ahead of time. So when we talk to the labs, we just say, listen, we want holes A, B, C, D. We don't want those holes to us before they're all done. And that way we don't have inside information that we can't share. So we are just waiting for the labs to give us that whole package of results. Instead of kind of receiving one result at a time and sitting on it, we just receive the 5 holes at a time and then we report them. So that's a bit of the secret sauce, the mechanics that American Eagle Gold rolls with. We're not delaying results by any way. And then next week, we're going to put out some results for the South Zone. Hopefully it'll open up some eyes of some of these investors of really how important this underground South area is. So we're excited for that news release. We're just getting started on writing it, so it should be out before the end of next week. Don't take my word for it, but I've been hearing the criticism, so we're going to get that news out as soon as possible. But it's not just about writing a release, it's about getting it QP'd. It's about having the proper images. I think most investors only read the first paragraph in the title, so you got to make sure your images properly explain that story. So that's a bit of the update there. I think with our balance sheet, we have. If you compare our balance sheet to a major company, for example, let's say, for example, a company that I love, respect, invest in, Iron Gold. What are they up 600% in the last year? If you look at them just from a macro point of view, they probably have a 20% downside, and I would argue to say maybe 100% upside, probably more 50 to 60. And you compare that to American Eagle Gold. I think, our downside is probably the same as some of these major, probably 20% downside, call it 40 cents. But our upside is probably 250 to 300%. So you actually have more of an upside than a lot of these mid-tiers have had a lot of value built into them, and the same downside. And then what we're seeing now is a lot of that money is actually trickling down. So there's more money coming into the junior sector, either from people having more money to invest there, or from them selling some of the mid-tier and the majors and actually wanting to get exposed to something that has the same downside but a lot more upside. So I think American Eagle is in a very good position, and it's really protected a lot by its balance sheet. We don't have to do a raise for the next 2 years. And one thing big advantage for our company, we actually have news coming out all the way till mid to the end of March. So our off season is a lot shorter than everyone else in BC. So the money actually migrating out of North American plays to South American plays won't be as drastic with American Eagle Gold, because our best results are going to come towards the end of the season. So seeing some of these XRFs and these visuals, if I saw those, I wouldn't be selling American Eagle Gold. Don't take my stock tip for it, but I think we're well positioned for the next 4 or 5 months, and then we'll be drilling end of May. So we'll be at it right again, another 30,000 meter program, which is going to show a lot. One last thing before Neil jumps on. I always get asked, when are we doing a PFS, PEA, MRE? To give everyone kind of an order there, you do an MRE before you do a PEA, before you do a PFS, before you do an FS. And I think an MRE is something that shows you how small you are And like American Eagle Gold, this is the first year we've done big step outs. So we don't even understand how big we are yet. So why kind of handcuff us and give ourselves a glass ceiling? So we're going to do another whole year of drilling. We're going to base it off 60,000 meters that we've done. Then after the 2026 season, I hope that we can prove that south zone's a mine and be able to kind of hang together all the different areas where we've done step outs in the IP embayment zone, in the north zone, and the porphyry stock, and they'll be ready in 2027 to do a mineral resource estimate. And the big companies don't need it. Tech and South 32, they're constantly redoing their block model and their MRE on us. But I think that's something that investors eventually want to do. But we want to prove to people this thing is massive. There's a big area of high grade, and it could actually eventually show people that this can be a mine someday. But if you're looking at target valuations for us, I'm not saying these companies aren't worth the valuation, but I definitely think that American Eagle is worth just as much. A-Mark, they own 30% of their asset. Their hands are tied. TDG, hardly any drill holes there, kind of a closeology play to A-Mark. And then look at Double View, for example. So all those companies have $250 million valuation. I think we got a lot of things those companies don't have, mostly the balance sheet, but also we have no hands tied with any other company. We don't have a row for a Tech and South 32. Lovely companies. I love working with them. Would love them to buy us out someday, but we're still free agents. So again, with our cash, that actually provides more blue sky for us. And our plan is just drill, drill, drill. All the interest that we have in the bank account, it doubles, it pays for more than twice what we have in admin. So if you're investing in a company, you want to make sure that company is putting dollars in the ground. And we haven't taken dollars from retail in 3 years now. It's all come from Tech and South 32 and working together to prove that this can be a mine. And hopefully with these 6 interviews and these road shows, we can help people realize, A, who we are, and that this thing is for real. But I always say it's a process, not an event. And when it moves and something happens, it happens quick. So thank you for listening to that monologue. Sorry for anyone that fell asleep. Neil, let's talk about this area of the porphyry stock that we think is so important.
Yeah, thanks for the it was a good update. No, we're all really excited on the team about just about the continued. It seems pretty much everywhere we step out at NAC, we're hitting the same style of mineralization within varying degrees of tenor. But we're particularly excited about this hole 53 because it kind of opens up a whole area that wasn't in a lot of proximity to any of the historical drillings. There was one hole near surface that was a very short hole, and it hit some okay results. So that was how we sort of decided to follow this up. There were some areas of the porphyry stock going from the admittedly not very good historical data. There's a lot of issues with that data set and a lot of question marks as to where those holes were actually drilled. So, we take it with a grain of salt. The conventional wisdom was that the porphyry stock is not that well mineralized. And up until this season, where we were kind of de-risked by the funding, it was a riskier play to do boulder step outs within it. So we were really, really pleasantly surprised, though not that surprised. I think we understand the scale potential that NAC has. So it was really good to see our suspicions validated by the testing. So hole 53 was excellent. There's a lot of really nice sericite alteration that seemed to be overprinting earlier stage quartz magnetite, chalcopyrite, and bornite veining, and interestingly zones of disseminated mineralization within that, which we don't typically see in the porphyry stock. So there's these sub phases, these additional phases of the porphyry that are hosting mineralization. And a lot of the follow-up holes we have planned to the north and to the east, some quite far to the east, have been hitting very similar styles of mineralization, right? And those are, a lot of that stuff hasn't even been crushed yet. It's just sitting on pallets at the lab right now. So we're kind of eagerly anticipating that. But yeah, the potential for impacting the scale here is, it's very, very good. So yeah, it's just another positive thing to see at NAC. And this is all outside of the really nice jewel box zone that Tony was talking about in the south, which is, again, just evidence to show that, South Zone has a lot of really nice smoke around it too. So it's not all jewel box style mineralization. It's broad zones of sporadic veining and local disseminations that then kind of coalesce into this really, really high grade zone down deep. The potential for that exists up in the north, which we haven't yet discovered. So it's really good to see this very consistent, concentrated smoke around this area. It just kind of points to more high grade existing. So yeah, it's great to see.
Do you think something exists like that underneath, in that area where 59 and 53 are? I think within the porphyry stock, you can eventually vector into some sort of higher grade zone, either at surface or at depth.
I mean, it's really coming down to the geology. And what we see in the south, we see a really strong association with these early dark porphyry dikes and these finer grained mafic dikes. And oftentimes we'll punch through the zone of mafic diking, which we believe is earlier. Charlie kind of pulled this out right away back in 2023, that it looked like where these mafic dikes were injecting into the wall rocks. It kind of primes the area to accept the next pulse of porphyry mineralization. So you get all these nucleation sites on oxides and sulfides, pyrite and magnetite, that then become sites for copper mineralization to fix on. And so that seems to be what's going on in the south, at least for the zones of disseminated mineralization and replacement mineralization we see. And then there's another phase of diking that's bringing in what looks like bornite and chalcopyrites, right, and what looks like murialytic cavities, right? So primary magmatic sulfide. So where you get these mafic dikes and these later phase monzonitic dikes, this kind of confluence seems to be a really, really good sweet spot for coalescing this mineralization. Early prelim geochemistry shows that out to the far east we have some more of this mafic signature diking, right? It's still sparse drilling. We don't really understand the geometry of it, but we're seeing a lot of this broader, lower to medium grade disseminated mineralization out there as well. So the same building blocks of the story that we see in the south do appear to be present out in this zone as well. And so that is, that's just another vote of confidence for the whole theory that there can be some additional high grade zones down there. And that's not the only thing that brings in high grade mineralization. We also get, distal to these zones of anhydrite veining that are just ripping with bornite, molybdenite, chalcopyrite. And it's unclear how that's related at this point. But we're seeing that same style of anhydrite veining up there in 53 as well, bringing in elevated molybdenite, often gold with that. It's where we get some of the elevated gold values when we see those veins as well. So yeah, there's all the parts of the story are present over a really, really broad area, and it's really good that we're continuing to see this stuff.
So I'm going to show you a screen. Neil. How I almost forgot your name.
I did get a haircut. It's hard to.
Nice haircut. Okay, so if you look at this here. 61 we drilled. We think it was a little bit too far to the east, but it came up with some decent mineralization. At least it looks from in the XRF. Nothing high at all, but enough smoke to think that there's something out there. Do you think this whole area possibly kind of comes east north or northeast east or something? Like how does this kind of connect? Because there's definitely there wasn't nothing in 61.
No, well,
we drilled a little bit too far to the east. We unfortunately had to stop it at 400 meters, but the kind of the way that we're kind of hitting this IP embayment zone, like we drilled these things southwest. This one that's way too far southwest, it's way too far southwest, and then this one here kind of hit something at the very end. But the one that was most successful is kind of going kind of due west, which makes me think that this mineralization almost kind of comes and creeps this way. So what do you speak to that?
No, I think it certainly warrants more aggressive follow-up next season. We've had a lot of success in the pilot holes we've drilled out there so far. 61, I really like to see. 61 was collared. We're guided in that area because there's very little outcrop exposure and very thick tree cover. We're guided by the the IP survey, right? And so that was collared in a pretty high IP signature. And out on the western margin of the stock, that the really high IP signature correlates to pyrite, not necessarily chalcopyrite. And that was pretty consistent with what we saw. There's a lot of pyrite off the top of hole, but then there is also chalcopyrite within that. So we definitely, we're definitely seeing some copper kicks in this hole. It's not a dead hole by any stretch. And when you couple that with the pretty decent amount of smoke you're getting off the top of hole 9, and then you kind of lose it because you lose the consistency of grade. You hit the stock, but we're still seeing those kind of sparse veins in the stock. It's about following the sweet spot in that IP signature, and I think that's going to continue to be a pretty helpful guide up there. But then we know from drilling as well that we've got a bit of what looks like stratigraphic control to the most favorable post rocks. So the outside the stock is all these stratified rocks. They're volcaniclastic, coarser sandstones, conglomerates. And there's certain beds within this larger package that have been consistently shown to host better mineralization. So getting a better handle on the orientation of those, which we have now, has really helped us target. So hole 9, which you see there, was fairly consistent mineralization. But that very likely drilled down the stratigraphy, right? It drilled down dip and was pretty consistently within the same unit, we infer now. When we're drilling to the west and to the southwest, we're cutting the stratigraphy better, and we're seeing these better mineralized units and getting a better handle on those geometries. So that's also going to be an important guide, and that's going to result from some more modeling work in the off season. And we'll be able to design some really, really effective holes, I think, out in this zone. To your question, a lot of potential out there. There's a couple different ways we're going about targeting it, and it's all about using all the data available.
I think the orientation is pretty important. Sometimes you can kind of drill based on how these dikes are oriented. Sometimes you can drill down a pretty crappy dike, so it's better to kind of drill from east to west and going through the dikes as opposed to kind of down them. And some of them are good, or some of them are not so good. But and then what about, like, given what happened in 61, we drilled it a little bit too far to the east, like, is there a way to kind of try and flush out this area that we see kind of on the eastern margin of the porphyry stock?
Well, so we have the historical 95-33 hole out there, which had some pretty decent grade in it, and that's the only kind of hole within 200-300 meters of where we drilled out here. I think some more systematic testing out here will be really good. 61 is way outside of, like, that's a big step out. And the fact that we're still seeing porphyry style mineralization out there is very good. Like, if you go from the collar of 61 to the collar of, let's say 18, that's about 1.3, 1.4 kilometers. So we're talking a really big distance. It might even be more than that. I don't have my ruler up on the screen, but see, I can measure that right now. 1.7, almost 1.8 kilometers. So we're talking a massive area. Not to say that is all consistently mineralized, but there's a lot of subzones within there that we have the potential to discover, just based on what we know about how the NAC mineralizing system is working. There's a lot of favorable magnetic fabric out there to test as well, which seems to be correlated with some of the diking. And so, yeah, it's all open to testing. And like I said earlier, I think getting the best handle we can on the stratigraphic controls and the orientation of the stratified rocks outside the porphyry stock, that's going to be kind of key to this. The other key to exploring here, especially as we now know that the porphyry stock is a good host, is really nailing down the precise geochemistry and textural variations within in these stock rocks to see what might be controlling the mineralization out there. It's visually, it's quite hard. There's a lot of variation on a very small scale texturally. And compositionally, especially with some of the alteration overprints, it can be very difficult to distinguish the different phases of this stock, and even some of the different later stage diking. They can look very similar in XRF geochemistry, and when when you just have your eyes on them. So it's this. There's some more subtle geochemical variations you can pull out when you look at all of the different trace elements, which we won't have until we have the full assays back. So. Yeah, there's still a fair bit of technical modeling work to do to unravel this, but it's a great problem to have, to try and figure out, hey, why is this mineralization here? And so yeah, that's going to be the focus in the off season.
So just to show everyone just one more thing here. So if you go to our website, and Neil, just tell me if you can see this, because it's pretty confusing. So if you guys see my screen? The website? Yeah?
Yeah, that looks good on my end, at least.
If you go to interactive drill map, which I hope still comes up, you can see this interactive drill map, everyone? Neil, you can see it?
Yep.
So we have this on our website. So if anyone wants to look at any kind of historical hole, any hole you see here, you can click on it, and you can see what the grade was. You refer to the news release. It brings you to the core photos. Then you can kind of see all of your historical things. You click on a hole, you can see what it is. If you want to see the IP, you can see the IP. You want to see the satellite imagery instead, see where we are and how great our infrastructure is. You can see it. You want to take out the bad beam porphyry stock because you don't like the color pink, you can take it out. You want to see our outcrops, you can see it. But then as well, if you kind of want to then look at our holes, you don't know which hole you're looking at, you just click on a hole and it shows you where it is. So for example, if you're like, oh, where's 17? And they drilled that Chilean hole in BC, you just click on it, shows you where it is, and it brings up all the results. So that's a tool we have on our website that maybe people don't know about. And as well, Nick and Neil have been working on an awesome model, and we're going to put it out with the new release. But we have a 3D model, and then you can click and see where each hole is kind of underground. You can spin around 3D. I think Nick's going to have a baby soon, so hopefully it's out with the news release. But if not, we'll put it in with this interactive map or make a button. But I just want to make sure people know all the resources that American Eagle Gold provides. So Anya helped provide this from Ignite. She's absolutely amazing. If there's any kind of people that work at a company that want a really good web designer, person that can solve problems, I recommend that speak to her. So
yeah, that's a really neat tool.
Yeah, it's just getting updated as we go. Now, okay, so now Q&A. So does anyone have any Q&A? I see Andrew, big support of the company. Thanks, Andrew. When will we be confident enough to sink a drill hole that's 1,000 meters? Hey, good question. So look, from my seat, and I see the updates every day. So why drill a hole 1,000 meters? So it's easy to say you want to do it. We've always wanted to do it. And we actually did drill one hole over 1,000 meters this season. But when you're drilling a hole, if you're into something good, you drill it for as long as it's good. But, let's say you're into a hole, like we were in hole 78 that was popping. You already got like 600-700 meters of good stuff. Then all of a sudden you hit an area of 100 meters that's not good to show you to shut down the hole. Why ruin a good thing and spend an extra $300,000 to get 300 more meters to not really show you anything? So, and then on the other hand, we could be on like, what do we drill, a 600, 700 meter hole that's no good, and then, hey, let's push it for another 600 meters to see if something's there. It's hard at the time to do that because you're just kind of watching your money just fly out the window. And once you get kind of under 800 meters, you're drilling like 20 meters a day. So we have enough stuff at sub-level that we're going to see in the south zone and at surface that we really haven't needed to drill that, 1,000-meter hole. South 32 wants to pay for that. They're like, yeah, we'll do it. But every meter that you drill under 800 meters, it's essentially 1.5 meters to 2 meters. It's 1.5 meters to 2 meters that you can actually drill of anything above 800 meters. And that just gets exponentially worse the deeper you get. So still, it's a bit about cost of capital, but, it's something we want to do someday, but it's more of like a capital markets kind of cash thing for us. We're hitting enough good stuff it's a good problem to have, a lot closer to surface than that. But I don't know if you want to speak further to that or if I explained that properly.
No, yeah, that makes sense. It's my one regret is back in 2022 that I didn't push hole 2 to 1,000. We stopped it at 988, and we were still hitting some really nice chunky bornite veins. But like Tony said, that's very deep. It's a steeply oriented hole, and yeah, it's the pace of drilling slows right down. Like between 20 and 40 meters a day is not atypical for those deep holes, and you've got a lot of other stuff to test, right? So it's better to end in something really good down at a 900 meter depth than potentially miss out on something closer to surface. So yeah,
that was an awesome zone you guys hit in too. Like, are you guys going to once all this geochem and stuff is figured out after the season, could we just go for a straight vertical where you think that is, and maybe go for the juggler there, or maybe in the south zone? Because the one thing about we don't like to drill vertical holes because it doesn't really give you a lot of information on the geology. But the good thing about vertical holes, they go down the fastest. So maybe is there a time we could maybe just do a straight vertical and do a 1,500 meter hole and make Andrew and everyone happy? And remind you, they're only happy to actually hit something. If you hit a 1,500 meter hole of nothing, it's just a waste of money.
Well, exactly, right. And not to take the luster off of that, but the hole 3, the next hole we drilled, was not that far. It was a vertically oriented hole, and I thought based on what we hit in hole 2, I was like, man, this is going to get fairly close to it. And it hit some of the same veining. There's some really nice chunky bornite veining in it, but it missed the dike that was in hole 2, because these are pretty steeply oriented dikes, and when you're trying to hit steeply oriented features, drilling very steeply oriented holes is a great way to almost certainly miss them, right? So it's better to come at, I think that zone is best followed up from what we know now about the orientation of veining, what we know now about the orientation of the host rocks, is to step to the east and drill it towards the west.
What are your thoughts about twinning hole 4 again and actually getting through that stuff that we stopped in? That was, essentially the same hole that Hercules Metals put on that, got their market cap to 250 million.
Well, we undercut hole 4 and hole 12, and that ended up being our best hole up until that point. So I'm fairly confident we've explored that zone. I wouldn't mind doing some holes that are stepped back from hole 4 and getting under it from the other orientation. So collaring into the stock and drilling to the west again, just based on how good hole 53 was. Maybe
to end the season, Neil?
Quite possibly. There might be something in the works there.
I think there's something in the works there. We'll talk offline about that. Okay, so Nate, I'll get to you since you're asking a lot of questions. Appreciate your support. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I know who you are too. Razzle. So would you consider using AI to gain an overall picture of the deposit? Look, I'm going to be a little cheeky here, but, I guess you can use AI to give you a picture of the deposit, but I don't even think you need AI. You just need to develop a block model. I think a lot of people ask you, are you going to use AI to, find something? We've already found something. And I am yet to find a company that has used AI to make a mining discovery. Maybe I'm wrong. Send me an email, but have not heard of one yet. It's based on a lot of it, old school geology, putting together your geophysics, your geochem, and historical drilling to kind of vector into something. I think a lot of companies claim they have the silver bullet, but I figured out, doing what I've doing for the last 5 years as CEO and then working at IAMGold before, there is no silver bullet in life or in mining, and it's just a lot of hard work and making sure you have good rocks and people like Neil, like good people. So, but I don't know, Neil, like, you have any comment on the AI to gain overall picture of the deposit?
I mean, so Nick, our technical wizard, not so much AI, but has implemented machine learning algorithms, which is taking in our data set and filtering our data set through some rules that are dictated by the larger data set itself, right? So not taking a one-size-fits-all statistical approach, but taking an approach of how the different units that we have specifically vary within as we've defined them. So the problem with AI when it comes to exploration like this is the parameters the AI is going to use to make any decisions or any sort of generative inferences are going to be based on what the geologists call the rocks. And if that's wrong, then the AI is going to be wrong, right? So it all comes down to data that was human generated, and any human errors are just going to be propagated by an AI. And then there's no way to, once it goes in, these AI, it's kind of a black box. You don't really know what happens. You can look at the results and interpret it, but honestly, I think the best approach to this, especially with how we use our data and the success we've had using this, is to, you can use certain machine or learning algorithms, these clustering algorithms to group geochemical features, the HDB scan clustering and the UMAP projection. That relies pretty heavily on some machine learning filtered data sets that we feed it. And again, this is all over my head. This is from me talking to Nick at length about how this works. But that's an area we've had a lot of success. But it is by no means just putting all the data into there's companies that will do this for you. And I'm sure these techniques are getting more sophisticated. But at the end of the day, it's still a human taking a look at the data and being like, making some educated decisions based on other geological knowledge. So
short answer, yes or no?
No, we're not going to do it. There's some elements of machine learning, at least not necessarily AI, like a large.
All right, we do use the AI at American Eagle Gold. If I'm trying to figure out what the true depth is of an 800-meter hole at a 45-degree angle, I'll ask ChatGPT. If I think I'm running a pretty jerkish email back to Steve Stewart, I'll say, ChatGPT, I am having a bad day. Can you make this a lot nicer? I'll send it to Steve. So that's the extent that I use AI right now. Very, very helpful though. Keeps me my job sometimes. So moving on here. So Nate, I will get to you. I see another question here from Jacques. What is your long-term strategy? At what point would you sell, price, or development stage? Look, loaded question. Things can change. We're always for sale. It's always about the right price. It's all about egos and valuation. I don't think we're the right price right now. I'd like to finish off our 2026 drilling. It's going to be amazing after the results that we have for this year. And then, incorporate all the information that we learned that Neil was talking about to drill our holes in 2026. I think it'll give investors a really clear picture of what we have, which is robust. And, one of the challenges we've had is, people are invested in AE. They know about us. They're not selling, but it's hard to get more buying in. The market's moving fast, and also a lot of our raises weren't done with the banks, and we don't have the broker support. We don't have the funds in, but that also creates a big opportunity. I think there's a big valuation gap that we can fill with the companies I talked about, TDG, A-Mark, Doubleview. So it's an opportunity for us. But in terms of pricing, I'd like our stock to get to minimum $500 million market cap, probably closer to $1 billion. So get into the 3 comma club, $1 billion valuation, then we can talk then. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, given what we can do on the micro level for our asset and the macro level with what's happening in the market in terms of the price of copper, price of gold, and also a lot of that money kind of filtering out from the mid-tiers, the majors, AI companies, wanting to see, how can we get those 3-5Xs? Hey, it's exploration company. Which are the best exploration companies? The ones with the best, most cash, the ones in the best location, the ones with the best geology. Check, 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 American Eagle Gold. So I see a lot of opportunity there, but we still got to prove out this asset. I'll tell everyone one thing. We are not mine builders. Most mining companies whose job is to be mine builders, they're also not mine builders. And we can see that from the fact a lot of them, when they put out their initial CapEx, when they're building a mine, they're 3 times as much. So we like to stay within our space. It's making discoveries and then making discoveries again. The ore group needs that big liquidity event. So, Steve Stewart's amazing, chairman of the company, but we're going to figure out what happens next year and then, see what our valuation, then we'll talk. But the good thing is we have 2 major companies that are interested in us. We have no roofers, so possibly other ones are as well. So we have all the recipes for a, perfect Christmas dinner that's coming up. So hopefully that answered your question. And I took that analogy from Nate Smith. Props to you, Nate. And here's some questions from Nate. So can you talk about the results of 53 relative to the results. Oh, one more thing I forgot. We drilled a hole, Neil, was it hole 46 where someone stopped in this friggin' really high grade and I got really upset. So that was another hole I think we could have pushed to 1,000 meters. Sorry, just came to my mind. Sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. Nate, can you speak about the results of 53 relative to the results landed in 47? Go ahead, Neil.
47. Yes. It's stronger than 47. And so what's interesting about, am I able to share a screen here
You
at
sure
all?
can.
Yeah, I don't want to see just
Press share, then go to the window.
I just want to make sure I don't have anything up that's I'm not supposed to.
Oh, CNN. No, that's my screen.
Like to be released stuff. I got to make sure I'm not. Okay, so let me close the prelim assays. Yeah, so let's take a look here, and this is going to be the 3D model that's going to be hosted on the site. So this will be kind of what this is what Nick has made as well. So he's not just a machine learning guy. He's a
machine.
He's a machine. Though ChatGPT did help with the coding on this, I will say. So there's some AI use, but it's only as good as the person implementing it. So let me share the screen here. So where do we go here?
This is compelling television, Neil.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm talking to something I can see that no one else can.
Click on the thing, go to window, and show where you're.
Got it. There we go.
No, I just see your screen of your screen. There we go.
Can you see this now?
Yeah, we'll have this model up eventually for people to look at.
Yeah, so this is to accompany the news release we're talking about. So the way this works is you can toggle all of the different news releases we've done this season, all of our NAC 2022 holes prior to this, the historical Harrow holes. So all the data is on here, and future releases. So what we haven't released yet. And then you can also do, this has got a surface drape on here as well, if you wanted to see the terrain. So this is like sort of a fully 3D interactive map of the 2D one that Tony showed, but I'm getting away from the question here. So yeah, let's talk about 53 and where it is and how it compares to 47, which would be this one here, 47 up here, and then 37 and 35. So it's pretty interesting about what we hit also at the bottom of 58, just getting into better mineralized stock, is it's deeper positionally than what we hit in 37, which didn't get good until it was down a little bit deeper. So it's showing a lot of variation in the potential for mineralization within the stock. 47 was actually better than we expected as well. There was some actually really decent zones up high in it, which was within stock rocks, a bit of a lull, and then it did pick up at depth. So it shows that right now this zone is very sparsely tested, and it's fairly noisy in terms of grade. It would be really nice to get some more holes kind of collared out where you can see my cursor right now drilling towards the west, which is at a bit of a more favorable orientation for the veining, to just build the picture out here, because you could be substantially increasing a larger lower grade resource that would very well complement the kind of higher grade zones we have elsewhere on the property. So yeah, style of mineralization though actually quite similar. It's the just closer spaced stringers and fracture coatings on local zones of disseminations of chalcopyrite and bornite. So yeah, it's great to see. The really, really compelling thing about 53 though was that it was right off the top. There was some really decent mineralization, and the gold grade in 53 was a lot higher than is typical in the the rocks that are outside the stock in the North Zone. So top of hole 7, top of hole 4, very, very strong copper mineralization, not a ton of gold. The gold is, quite a bit better out here between 0.1 and 0.3 pretty consistently, right? And that, that's nothing to sniff at in a porphyry like this. So the whole area is open, and you can see where we've continued to follow up the zone. I'll put these narrow traces, these gray traces of the holes. This is just
how far are those apart, Neil? If you look at 59 to like area 53, how far are those two holes?
So this is in an orthographic projection. It's hard to have a floating scale bar on this, but these grids are 500 meter by 500 meter grids. Actually, you know what? This is not an orthographic projection. This is a perspective view. So these lines are 500 meter spacing. So it's looking top down, like these are about 250 meters apart. This was about 180 meters step out here, if I recall correctly. And then once we're talking about the zone over here, this is almost a kilometer away to the testing in this zone. And because it was helicopter based, and Tony's point about the trickiness of moving to areas on the fly that you want to follow up, is they were all done from one center. So there's still quite a bit of real estate in here that is not very well tested at all. So yeah, lots to continue to explore there.
So next question from Nate. Can you talk about the planning around the holes that are now stepping east of 53 with 63, 66, and 70?
Yeah, so those were utilizing historical exploration trail. There's actually a pretty good network in that area, and it's pretty flat line. So we were able to skid drill those, which is why we were able to test it a bit more aggressively this season. And the thinking was somewhat similar. So 66 63 and 66 were similar steeply oriented holes drilled at a similar orientation to 53. And then we ended up doing hole 70, which was inclined at a 45 to kind of go through this test of a larger volume near surface, and then punch out of the stock and go back into some of the better mineralized host rock along trend of hole 14 and hole 30, which were quite good as they got into the stock. So, there's been a couple holes that have been designed to test depth, and complemented by a hole that's going to hopefully string together that volume. So on a section, we'll be able to get a lot more from it. But it's still dominantly confined to a single 200 meter wide east-west corridor. Next season will be a bit more systematic stepping north and stepping south and drilling westerly oriented holes to properly characterize this volume of rock.
Do you see a second question? How do these holes relate to 53, and how do they relate to the holes 59, 64, 67, 76, even further east? Is the BPS zone coming together? Is that the intent?
That's the intent, right? So hole 59 was a South 32 planned hole that was a very big step out. It collared into rocks that weren't necessarily Babian stock rocks. They were darker. If they were intrusive, they were really, really magnetite, biotite altered. And there was a really decent amount of disseminated chalcopyrite and pyrite in them. And so that we felt warranted additional follow-up. And so we drilled 64, 67, 76, and then South 32, based on the result, planned another hole that trace we don't have on here that was collared due west of 59 and is currently being drilled to the west. And so the idea is that'll hang together on a similar width section and help us pull together some of the different intrusive phases, and hopefully link up some of this mineralization, depending on what we hit in these holes. So, it wasn't initially planned as a follow-up to that, but it's all kind of coming together as, maybe part of the same related zone, or at least part of the much larger NAC system as a whole. We see the same sort of geological similarities out in this 59 zone as we see pretty much everywhere on the NAC property. We've got these darker dikes that seem to be prepping the host rocks, the non-stock rocks, and then within the stock rocks, we see these zones of bornite, chalcopyrite, and then overprints of sericite alteration that often bring in calco and moly. So, yeah, it's everything that we're seeing at NAC along this western margin that's been more heavily tested. We're seeing out in the center of the stock and to the east of the stock. So, yeah, it's exactly what we wanted to see. And yeah, it's been pretty successful first test of this area, I think.
Do we understand the bounds of this sub-level higher grade area yet, or are we just starting to understand it?
We're just starting to understand it. It's a bit of a different geometry than everything else, and it seems to be pretty consistent once we punch underneath this zone of earlier mafic diking. So whether that mafic diking has kind of baked the blocks around it and it's acting as a bit of a structural trap to some of the porphyry fluids, or if it's just a matter of that initial hornfelsing has prepped the rocks to be more accepting hosts of the mineralization, there does seem to be an association. And some of these mafic dikes themselves are actually pretty juiced with chalcopyrite. And so it's a matter of tracing out this specific level, and it seems a bit more flat-lying than everything else, which is fairly steeply dipping or gently dipping at NAC. So it's something different, and we're in the process of tracing it out. It's also been nice to hit some broader mineralized wall rock up above these zones too. So some of these holes that we've drilled out in this area have a nice zone of near surface mineralization, a bit of a lull, and then boom, we get into this really nicely mineralized zone that we hit in down deep in 46, down deep in 48, visually similar in 52 and 73 and 75. So yeah, it's been great to see, but we're still getting a handle on it. Still getting a handle on it.
Okay. Any more questions from anyone? Appreciate everyone spending an hour to listen to this. Okay. Well, look, we're going to keep on doing these presentations. I was on the road, so we weren't able to do it right after our last news release, but our next news release next week, I don't know what day it's going to be on. It's just a bit of a process, but we'll have another webinar right after that, so we can talk to those results, which we think will be robust, and we'll have more information. So let's keep on doing podcasts, try and give people as much information as possible. But just remember, look around at the other companies. We got the cash, we got the rocks, we got the team, and we're undervalued. So American Eagle Gold, AE, TSX Venture, keep on following us and contact me anytime if you have any questions. So thank you, Neil. Thanks, Dan, for hosting. And I guess I hosted too. So looking forward to speaking and giving more news to like.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And just as a piece of housekeeping, if you'd like to watch the replay, you can access it from the same URL. It'll be posted later this afternoon.